please. Sorry. And pursued postgraduate medical training at Balta Hebron University Hospital. He spent 2 years in advanced drug development program at the Institute for Drug Development in San Antonio, Texas, and then completed his training in drug development in ICT as a senior clinical research fellow. He joined the MD Anderson faculty in 2016 as an associate professor in the Department of Investigational Cancer Therapeutics with a joint appointment in the Department of Genomics Medicine. He also serves as the Associate Medical Director for the Institute of Personalized Cancer Therapy and Clinical Co-Director of the Precision Oncology Decision Support Group. He is the principal or co-principal investigator on over 30 early phase clinical trials, looking at a large degree of advanced solid tumor malignancies. And his most significant contributions to the field include the development of PI3K, FGFR, and TGF-beta inhibitors, as well as multiple translational collaborations. So we'll introduce, I'll share your slides here. Thank you so much, Dr. Rodon.
Thank you very much. So Christine invited me to talk about a specific clinical trial that we are developing in collaboration with Taiho Pharmaceuticals. And this is for advanced tumors with this germline PTEN mutation. But I thought that this is a very well-educated community, and the details of the trial, if you are interested, you know how to find them. You know who to ask and how to get this information. So I think that in a talk like this, it's probably more important to give the context. How do we get here, and what is precision medicine, and how can precision medicine, especially in oncology, help in this condition? I'm going to go a little bit before. So you probably are familiar with this kind of a slide of how long it takes to develop a drug. And this is valid for every single specialty in medicine. There is many, many years of preclinical work in the lab. And then once we have the whole package of knowledge that this could be something that can help people, then we go to phase 1 trials. This is the first time a drug is used in humans. It has to be very careful, a small group of patients. A lot of pharmacology goes in these trials. And then when we are clear that we have a good schedule, a good drug, a safety profile, then we move to larger trials that are called phase 2 trials. And then the confirmation trials, phase 3 trials are very big, sometimes placebo, sometimes with a control arm with another standard option. My area of my career, I have developed my career in the early days of a drug. So I'm not an expert in coding disease or in PTEN per se. I'm more in drugs. I'm more a drug developer. I help patients to get good treatments. I help companies to develop good drugs. But my area of interest has been always precision medicine. So this interaction between drugs and genomics. And some of these need to be tested also in phase 2 trials. So I do a lot of trials in precision medicine. And that's going to be the background of this talk. Because with the genome project in 2003, we finally have a whole picture of what is the genome, the human genome, all the genes that are up there. And then little by little, we are understanding what is the biology of that genome and the understanding of the disease when there is alterations in the genome. But it still is pending how to translate all this knowledge to tools.
Sorry, you're muted.
So as a physician, I have my brain divided in two. One is my standard of care. What tools do I have that are approved by the FDA that I can use in my patients? And in cancer, we have many different drugs that are approved. But my other part of the brain is in clinical research. What is coming that is important? So we have several drugs that are approved for several genetic alterations in cancer, but there are many more that are being in development. And this was in 2010. But nowadays, things are shifting, and drugs that were researched 10 years ago, now they have been approved. And many more other alterations are being found in cancer, and now we have new drugs that we are experimenting and looking in the clinical research. So this brain that is divided is actually flowing in one direction as we get more and more efficacy of these treatments, and we prove that they work, and then the FDA approves the medication. So, and for precision medicine, what we are talking is that drugs may be effective not only in one disease, like let's say thyroid cancer, prostate cancer, breast cancer, but any disease with the same genetic background, let's say a BRAF mutation. One drug that inhibits BRAF could work across different tumor types. So this was the first clinical trial to show that. It was patients with mutations in a BRAF mutation with cancer, and you can see different diseases. And in this trial, it was tested if a drug that inhibits BRAF can work in any of these alterations. Well, why I'm telling you this? Because this trial proved that BRAF mutations work in non-small cell lung cancer. It does so and so in colorectal, but the important thing is the rare disease described here in the bottom, the histiocytosis, with only 25 patients with this rare condition, showing that it was very effective. The drug was approved for that rare condition. That proves that this kind of precision medicine can also help rare conditions, and that we don't need huge, big randomized trials to prove that. So now, a drug that is approved for melanoma, it's also approved for a rare condition like histiocytosis. So now you start seeing this connection between oncology and rare conditions. This is probably the most important slide because it shows how we can benefit. So these are all drugs developed in cancer. So this is the first column. The second column shows here the first FDA approval, olaparib for ovarian cancer, in the background of a mutation in the tumor, BRCA1 and BRCA2. Next one is pembrolizumab in melanoma. And little by little, these drugs that have been approved in oncology, driven mostly by pharma, all these trials are driven by pharma with academic centers, collaborative groups, little by little has permeated and has cross-pollinated other conditions. And here now you have several hereditary conditions that benefited from having these drugs approved in cancer, small trials, and all these drugs are now approved for rare hereditary conditions. So that cross-pollination of development in cancer, and especially in precision medicine, is now benefiting other conditions, more benign, amartomas like tuberous sclerosis, neurofibromatosis, etc. So these are cancer drugs, but now are being used in other conditions. And normally, the second part of the slide is not driven by pharma. This is mostly driven by academic centers, big academic centers, and patient advocacy groups pushing for doing these trials and getting these drugs in research. So because of that, because we see that in at least 10% of our patients that come to the clinic at MD Anderson with an advanced cancer may have in the background some kind of hereditary condition, BRCA1, BRCA2, neurofibromatosis, etc. We are developing a clinic to try to help bringing these drugs to patients with rare conditions. And we also notice that most of these genes are in pathways where we have drugs that we can modulate. So because of that, we are developing a clinic specific to bring new therapeutics to advanced cancer with germinal alterations. We want to do also clinical trials. We want to do some more research. So that's the background. And you can see that there are many other conditions that we can benefit beyond the ones that are approved, that have approved drugs, and also many new drugs being used in cancers that could be repurposed for these hereditary conditions. So because of that, because this is happening already, we thought that why not encoding disease? Why not a KT inhibitor in this? So let me pause here, change a little bit gears, and talk to you about the PI3K pathway. It was mentioned in the first talk by Ellen, a little more complicated. This pathway has been focus of research for many years in cancer. It's one of the most important intracellular signaling pathways, one of the pathways that is mutated in at least 30% of advanced cancer. Mostly PI3K could be mutated, PTEN could be mutated, AKT, mTOR. There are many members of the pathway, of the signaling pathway, that may have genetic alterations in the tumor. And this amplifies a signaling to the nucleus to grow, to proliferate, to produce more proteins, so the cells are ready to divide. In light blue, we have different proteins in this pathway that we can target. These are what we call druggable. It means that it's a protein where we can interact with the small molecules, with drugs. And in 2012, there was a huge push from pharma to develop new drugs. The technology, pharmacologists finally were able to develop drugs targeting some of these members of the path. And you can see here, there were different classes of drugs that were developed. Most of those were safe. The phase 1 trials were safe. We were able to develop a schedule, a schema for these treatments, but we failed to prove efficacy in a specific tumor type. So some of these programs were closed after phase 2 or phase 3 trials. And this is an example of the attrition that we have in general in oncology. We need good drugs, but also we need to prove where to use those drugs. And for many of these conditions, colon cancer, endometrial cancer, the efficacy of these drugs was not better than the standard of care, so the drugs were not approved. With the exception of in last years, we finally found that at least in lymphomas, these medications work, and there are 2 drugs approved for lymphomas, and then there is 1 approved for breast cancer. Now, I want to call your attention also to, so breast cancer is a very frequent condition, and this drug was approved for breast cancers with a mutation in the pathway, PI3K. But also, there is a rare condition that is the overgrowth, PI3K-related overgrowth syndrome. And this year, the FDA did approve this drug also for this rare condition. It's an hereditary syndrome with PI3K mutations based on a registry. So this is not even a trial. This was 37 patients treated with this drug in a well-designed registry. So that's important also, links with the importance of having registries. Sometimes you don't really need a trial to convince the FDA that the drug works. It is a very well-designed collection of information. So with this, we get to the clinical trial. So this is a drug that inhibits one of these members of the pathway. It's an AKT inhibitor. It's right below the signaling of PTEN. Maybe if you want, we can go back to the signaling. So we have So PTEN is a phosphatase, so it tries to inactivate PI3K, the effect of PI3K. PI3K activates, PTEN inactivates. So if you don't have PTEN, this whole pathway is constantly activated. Now, if we inhibit right downstream with an AKT inhibitor, we hope to shut down the extra signaling pathway, the stimulation, this overstimulation of the pathway. So that's where this drug is hitting. It's an AKT inhibitor. The drug was initially developed and continues to be developed in Japan for other indications. But here in the US, Taiho decided that we could try and treat the efficacy of advanced cancer with this background of the germline PTEN mutation. So right now, the first part, which is to confirm that in Caucasians, in our patient population, not in Asian, but in Caucasians, this is as well tolerated. Remember that there may be some differences in dosing in different racial backgrounds. So we just wanted to confirm that that was not the case. So we did some testing of the dose, and this part is complete. So now we are in this second part, which is a pilot study of treating patients with advanced cancer in the context of this germline PTEN mutation. If this works, if we are able to prove that works, we will go to a registration part where the aim is with treating 60 patients to go to the FDA with the data and see if it's positive data to try to register the drug. So this is initially a pilot study here, but then with the intent to go big across many countries in the world, including Asia and Europe, and go to registration. Now, I don't know if I need to go through the details of the inclusion and exclusion criteria. I think the important thing is that these kind of medications are well known, so we know how to manage them. They are mostly used by oncologists. And the clinical trial criteria, I think the only important thing is this is for advanced cancer, so with cancer that cannot be treated with surgery or with radiation. And then maybe we can leave the rest of the details for later. This is always in clinicaltrials.gov and reachable if you want to discuss specific cases. But I think the important thing is that this is a unique opportunity where that there are not many like this. This happens once in a while because of how rare this condition is. Pharma companies are less, how would I say, it's in the blind spot of pharma companies. It's not that they are not interested, it's that they have their hands busy with other things. So it is not frequent to have the attention of a company developing drugs in this space. But because of that slide that I show you, there are many different scenarios where this has worked. I think we may see more of this in the future, where we pay more attention to rare conditions, especially drugs from cancer being repurposed to other conditions. So I want to pause here and see if this was useful, if you have questions, and we can talk about drug development or this specific trial in particular.
Thank you, Dr. Rodon. Thank you for your talk. It was fantastic. I want to make sure families in the room and families who are listening know if you are one that is battling stage 4 cancer, or perhaps you have stage 3 cancer, or you have a family member, or you know someone in the PTEN community, this particular TAS 117 trial might be for you. This trial gives me optimism and hope for the future that there will be drug molecules and targets that will be beneficial for our community. So we need to make sure that together we are reaching everyone who might have a need for something like this. If you have questions and you maybe don't know what that is right now and you want to talk to myself or Dr. Rodon later at a break, feel free. Don't be shy. There are no wrong questions. And thank you.
Thank you. One comment on that. This is very important. You are empowered to spread the word of this. It may not be for you, it may not be for anybody in your family, but you may know somebody in your community. It is very important because this is a trial unique for this condition. Most of these patients may be treated in, let's say, in a breast cancer unit with breast cancer drugs in general, so like anybody else. But we have the foundation of this disease, the tumor. So now we may be able to hit the foundation, the genetic alteration that is driving the tumor. So we need to think about when is the best moment to participate in things like that. But my concern is that most of these patients are being treated in the community, in private practices or small hospitals, or even in big cancer centers without taking into account the genomic background of the disease. And that's where in precision medicine, that's our challenge, is how to make sure that these patients know about this option. So here is where you have a role. You have something that you can spread the word, you can inform people who may be going through these moments. It's always a very difficult moment when you go through an advanced cancer. There is a lot of information out there, lots of treatment options, but let's take into account the background. where is this coming from? So yeah, that's why this kind of presentations and communities are very important. Thank you.
Hi, we're from Australia, and I was just wondering if there's a patient in our community in Australia and they were wanting to get involved, how do they do that from Australia?
Mm-hmm. So there is plans, if you see the map, there are plans to open the trial in Australia. I think that this first part, first section is completed. The second one is open in some hospitals. I need to check. We have a list of hospitals that are open right away. As soon as we go through the pilot study of the first 6 patients, it will open in all these different sites. Because we are dealing with a very rare alteration, the trial has some reimbursement, so there is some help, financial help for traveling. So even if the patient is not that close from a site, there is some help in traveling and housing. So I think at the very beginning there was a foundation, a non-profit that was also talking about helping people to access advanced care. Similar here, some of these trials have resources to help patients to reach a research site. Now, from Australia to go to and get treated to the US is probably too much. So I think that this trial will be open soon in Australia sites, and Australia is very big, but maybe there may be some sites close to the patient. Yeah, and if not, and there are resources to help the patient financially.
Thank you. I was just skimming all of this great information. A lot of these drugs seem to be related to hormone positive cancers. Is triple negative cancer in any of this consideration?
Mm-hmm. So in the pathway that I show you, so for breast cancer, the pathway is altered in the different subgroups: HER2, ER positive or hormone positive, and triple negative. It's just which alteration is more frequent. For example, PTEN is more frequent in triple negative, in fact. Now, in the background of hereditary PTEN, germinal PTEN, we have seen both ER positive and triple negative with this PTEN mutation. This trial will be open for both. So the trial is open to any tumor type with the germinal PTEN. It's thyroid, it's breast, it's endometrial, all of them. It's a histology agnostic trial. It's a precision medicine trial. It's not about the organ that is where the tumor is originating is the genetic pattern. It's a different approach to medicine.
Hi. I know it's difficult getting funding and developing drugs for rare diseases. How do you overcome that? How do you garner more support so you're able to do this?
So there are 2 types of development. One is a brand new drug that has no approval. That is really heavy lifting because you need to prove. There is a lot of expenses behind that. There is a second type of approval, which is a drug that is used for something. Now I'm going to test if it works in something else, which is the examples that I show you. For that, you don't need that much funding because there is already some things going on. The safety of the drug is already proven and signed off by the FDA. So the bar is slightly lower, so you don't need that much monitoring. But for a brand new drug, you need to prove to the FDA that it's efficacious, but also that it's safe. You cannot prove that it's safe with a trial with 37 patients. So the FDA is not gonna say this is not good enough to go to the market. But if you have a drug that is approved, a repurposing trial is a low bar. You just need to prove efficacy. So I don't know if the expense is very different. Now, how to bridge in any case, this is expensive. So it's normally what we try is to get a mix of, for example, pharma companies may give some grants for these trials. Um, um, Cooperative groups may too, and there are some foundations out there that collect some money and run. So, for example, there is a foundation here in the U.S., Gateway for Cancer Research, and they have donors, big donors, and one of their ideas is to develop drugs for rare diseases and clinical trials, not basic research, but the big dollars, the clinical trials. So there is some possibilities to bring different pots of money and bring them all together to develop this. But the expense of clinical research is going up, that's for sure. So partnering with an academic side that is well funded, then some of those costs of study coordinators may be foregone, or could be another. Some big cancer centers have grants, structural grants, so they can bring down the cost for those things also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes. No, I did that on purpose. Okay.